Hello to all of you history nerds and buffs out there. For today's edition of the Song Fact Show, we're going to be reviewing some World War II propaganda, as it clearly explains on this slide. Also having one of the most iconic pictures in history as the background. I should get points for that. So, World War II was a time period where we saw a lot of propaganda, a lot of ads, a lot of political cartoons, really, to try to get somebody's points, agenda, or what have you across. Usually, I'd say large in part done by Americans, though other countries definitely did partake in it to a certain degree. I mean, propaganda most definitely, but propaganda of the same sort, not exactly. Now let's look at what we have for today's little piece, this amazing piece of artwork right here. So I see it says loaded. Don't take chances with pickups. Loose women may also be loaded with disease. Now this is a pretty interesting one. Alright. Pretty interesting, I'm gonna say. There's actually quite a few detailing or around this subject, which we'll get into a little bit. That was pretty funny for me. So let's at first break down this ad right here. So we have a gun and we have some woman, and it tells us not to take chances with loose women. It also says pickups. So let's give you a little bit of terminology. The term loose women and pickups are just women that you find basically anywhere, especially on the streets or in a bar or something. And not to be rude, but they're kind of easy. So yeah. So loose women and pickups both refer to that same thing, and they use the gun as an example as a deadly weapon that, when loaded, can be deadly. A weapon that, when loaded, can be deadly. And women are the same. Well, loose women, I should say, are the same way. When they're loaded with disease, they can be very deadly. Yeah, it's pretty extreme. But it's also kind of funny that things in the war were like this, that we needed propaganda ads and cartoons that detail such a thing. So yeah. So let me tell you the context of why an ad like this was created in the first place. Now, this was an ad by the U.S. Army made during World War II, as we already know, and it was meant to deter their male soldiers, or their soldiers, really. There weren't that many females, apart from maybe a few in the Air Force. So it was meant to deter their soldiers from picking up women at their locations. So, like, if they happen to be stationed somewhere in Europe, it's to tell the soldiers not to go and pick up women and have sex with them, especially unprotected sex with them, and then gain some type of disease. STD. Yeah. So, yeah, that became a pretty big issue. 7 million days of work from a soldier were taken away because of STDs. So basically, a day's work of 7 million soldiers was taken away over the course of the whole war, from soldiers being discharged or just unable to perform duties for a certain time period because they have the STDs. In total, 10,000 soldiers were discharged for STDs from the U.S. Army, and I think that's a pretty interesting statistic when you think about it. But you know what? I can't blame them. You're out in war. You might die the next day. You may as well go out swinging, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically the crux of what this ad is all about. Just trying to tell the soldiers to stay clear of any woman they see on the street, especially if that woman is quote unquote easy, because then they're gonna end up getting an STD possibly, and then they won't be able to fight the war for them. And the U.S. Army and every other army inside the war does not want their soldiers to be weak in times of fighting. They'll go to all the extenses to make sure that they're as strong as they can be for the battles. Every little bit counts in terms of these things. It's a world war. So while this on the surface might be a little bit ridiculous, when you really dig into it, I think there is a solid purpose for this, like a really grounded rationale. And it might be weird seeing it like a political ad. Like, if a soldier sees this, are they really gonna say, "Am I not gonna have sex with this woman?" I don't know, but I think I understand the motivation. Now that we've dissected this ad to everything, I'm gonna pose a few questions for y'all. Number one, do you think an STD problem in World War II would really have an unchecked STD problem in World War II would really have impacted the U.S. Army's war efforts? So basically, do you think that these STDs running rampant through the U.S. Army or through some of their soldiers would have cost the U.S. Army greatly in terms of the performance during the war, maybe even changed the whole course of the war as a whole? Kind of strange when you think about it on the surface, but then when you dig deeper, there's a tiny bit of thinking that you need to do. Second question: do you think propaganda posters made a significant change in a number of Army STD cases in World War II? Now, if you really want, you might be able to pull up statistics to prove this, but just on your thought, like put in like perspective of you're a 20-something fighting a war, you see a poster tell you not to get loose woman. Are you gonna heed the warning, or are you gonna Of course, not everybody's gonna be like you, but just something to think about. And lastly, if you were in charge of the U.S. Army during World War II, how would you combat the seeming STD crisis that was there? I say crisis, but I think I'm using that word a little bit too harshly right now. But it's an issue. So how would you, if you had the power to, combat the growing amount of STD cases that the U.S. Army was facing during that time? Yeah. Well, that being said, I think that just about wraps it all up for this episode. I think this deserves an A. I ain't gonna lie. I really think I pulled up. I'm just saying, mister. I'm just saying. Also, Nicholas is Che Guevara. Anyways, bro, it's been your boy, Song. Peace.